Hello, students and subscribers. Welcome to another class. In today's class, we are going to be looking at a poem. Anyway, Happy New Year. I think this is the first video I'm doing this year. I'm making this year. And I'm going to try the best I can to be consistent. And for those of you who are more interested in content regarding the 2025 to 2030 Literature and English WAEC, NECO and JAM curriculum, sit tight. I have several lessons for you, so you wouldn't have to worry about anything. Anyway, in today's class, we are going to be looking at a poem titled The Nation's Paradox, written by Abdulateef Ishowo. This is for students in junior secondary school and who will sit for the NECO examinations in 2025, 2026, and 2027 only. So those who are currently in year 7 to year 9, this poem is for you. The Nation's Paradox. So we are going, first off, I would like to read out the poem before I go into the analysis. We are a people of a nation where leaders don't lead, followers don't follow, executives don't execute, legislators don't legislate, judges don't judge, guardians don't guide, singers don't sing, dancers don't dance, teachers don't teach, professors don't profess, students don't study. It's a deep one. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is it's quite contradictory. You know, it's like, what's his story? What is he talking about? He's calling all these professions and he's saying that he's using the verbs associated with their professions and saying they don't do those things. It doesn't make sense. It's not adding up. One or two might add up. But if you look at it in the context of the people of a nation, Abdulateef Ishowo is a Nigerian. Okay. Is he? Can we suggest? You know, in poetry, you don't conclude. You can only suggest from your own point of view. Can we suggest that he's talking about Nigeria? Can we do that? Okay. And now let's start from the title, The Nation's Paradox. I don't know if you've heard of this figure of speech, paradox. Now, let me tell you how paradox works. You could hear a statement. This statement defies common sense. This statement is illogical. When you hear it as first or you read it at first, it is not adding up. It is absurd. It is weird. It is strange. Who says these things? Does it even make sense? But then you might want to have a closer look. Probably because the person that made this statement is someone who is intellectually sound, or you or someone you trust, or for whatever reason you want to sit back and listen closely. Let me read this thing again. Is there a sense to this thing that defies common sense? And then you figure out, oh wow, I think for some reasons there is a little sense to this statement. Let me give you an instance of how paradox works. Now, there's this statement, for slaves, listen to this example. For slaves, life was death, and death was life. Again, for slaves, life was death, and death was life. Now, let's be logical here. Life and death cannot coexist. You either have life or you don't. If you don't have life, you are dead. So you hear the statement, life was death. How? Life cannot be death logically. It defies common sense. Death was life. No way. If we want to be realistic here. But when you take a closer look at that statement, looking at the context, they gave us a context, a historical background. They said for slaves. It could be any slave, maybe a house help who is more like a slave. Or you could look back to what they taught you in history, the transatlantic slave trade, when Africans suffered and were taken abroad and our ancestors had to work for people they were much older than, had to cry and die at the Atlantic Ocean. And then you say, for people like those, life was death. So it means as they were breathing, they would have rather been dead because they are probably living a miserable life. Now it's adding up. But there's something we always say when someone dies, R.I.P., rest in peace. For some people, death connotes peace. People like slaves who go through hell while alive and they wish to die. For them, when they die, it was more like life, because then they do not have to suffer. They do not have to cry. They do not have to go through the hunger and the famine and the suffering in their own land or in a strange man's land where they were taken forcefully. But now the statement makes sense. There are so many examples. Let me give you one more. The child is the father of the man. It's gotten from a poem. How can a child be a father of the man? Please give me something else. This is so strange and absurd. But on a closer look, you could put 2 and 2 together. A child today, most of your fathers were children. You've seen daddy's picture. Or you've seen your uncle's picture when he was 10 years old, 11. He was a child. But now he's your father. Or he is a father. Some of you have elder brothers who are now fathers. It's weird because this was someone you were playing with just yesterday. The child is the father of the man. He will be a father to a man too. Absurd, right? That's how paradox. Statements that do not make sense at the first instance, but they begin to add up. For him, for the poet here, or our speaker, we'll call our speaker poetic persona, the narrator, that is the paradox he had to go through. It was a paradox. It's a paradox what is happening in the nation at this point. We are going to say Nigeria. We are going to suggest, because of the background of our poets, there's something we call psychoanalysis, where you cannot separate a writer from his work. Sometimes they try to write away from their work. They try to even change the setting. If you always look at the storyline, as much as it's fictionalized, you cannot separate a writer from their work. Let me not go too deep. Now, let's look at line 1. He said, we are a people of a nation where leaders don't lead. Isn't this relatable? When last has daddy had something nice to say about the country, or mom, or anybody, even your teachers? When last have you seen them really happy about development? We hear complaints, and these complaints are genuine. Leaders not leading. Now here's the paradox. How can you call yourself a leader? That is a noun. Leader. But you don't lead. Take note of the contraction there. Take note of the use of not, the negative. Don't lead. Then don't call yourself a leader. Just call yourself where non-leaders don't lead. I think it will make more sense, because it's paradoxical that you're calling yourself a leader and you're not leading. I don't want to go too deep into the instances of these people, but we know them. You hear their names everywhere, on the radio, by the fueling station, people complaining and grumbling. Let's move on quickly. Followers don't follow. Yeah, you're going to say, we follow, but not every follower follows. Kidnapping every day. If you were a genuine follower, you wouldn't take people's lives. You wouldn't kill people. You understand? You wouldn't take people forcefully. You wouldn't steal. You wouldn't even, let me go to the minute things that we overlook. Littering. You wouldn't litter your environment. You see people driving in fine cars, go to the fueling station, filling the fuel and complain on the exorbitant price of fuel and how, it's not, the salaries are not increasing. And as they're talking, they're drinking a bottle of water, plastic, and they wind down and they throw it out. They are followers. They are not following. Yes. We see people doing one way. Oh, please, I have somewhere to go to. I can't join this traffic. They endanger lives because they want to go faster. Taxi drivers, they complain. Oh, when you enter a taxi, oh my God, if you do not want to hear about them complaining about this nation in quotes, put on your AirPods, because it's going to be a fiesta of complaints from passengers. But what? They are following one way. They are not obeying traffic rules. Followers, isn't that paradoxical? It is paradoxical. Executives don't execute. Now, the arms of the government, the people who are to execute the law. When the laws are made, we have people who have to execute these laws. Guess what? They do not execute the law. In fact, they go behind. These executives now are probably the policemen who have to make sure people carry out the law. But guess what? The last time you drove out with mom and daddy had to shake someone's hands with cash because they were ready to ridicule dad, even though daddy had done nothing wrong, or whoever, you were in a taxi or whatever. You see the paradox? Judges don't judge. How, please? I've known this since I was a child. You hear of people who commit crazy crimes, and they clearly get away with it. Judges collect bribe. Elections get overturned. Election malpractice. Judges do not do their jobs at all. Then why do we call them judges? Isn't it a paradox? They should give themselves another name. They should call themselves charlatans or deceivers. That makes more sense. Guardians don't guide. This could be the people who are to look after you. It doesn't necessarily have to be your parents. You see a lot of things. Have you seen a lot of scenarios and then you're grateful for having parents? You see certain children who seem to enjoy certain freedom, in quotes. You're on the street doing things that even adults are not advised to do, and you're grateful you have your parents who are guiding you. Those teenagers you see who lack this privilege is because the guardians appointed to them are not doing the job. You understand? In developed countries, they have a very strong child safety policy, social worker policy. Children are not just left to themselves. No matter how stubborn they are, when they are caught, they are taken to juvenile centers where they are looked after. But in our nation, guardians don't guide. This one is pretty deep, and it's true. Do not call yourself a guardian. I am a guardian. Did you guide how you molested her? Did you guide how you led her astray? Did you guide him, or you led him into gambling? Or you left him to fend for himself at 9, 10? Singers don't sing. This is quite funny, though a paradox. And I was trying to put 2 and 2 together. That is very poor. You might be wondering, this man is complaining of a nation. What has singers got to do with it? He is trying to point out every facet. He is letting you know that this is not limited to just politics. Don't come and say, this is a poem that condemns politicians. No, we are all culpable. We are all guilty. There's something they call lip singing. You go to this concert and they call out this artist. We are all gyrating. We are screaming, woo! And they play her song. And the song is playing on the background while she's following with the microphone, lip syncing, not even saying anything. Sometimes, if they want to be embarrassed, or if posterity wants to embarrass them, guess what? Something will happen to the audio to stop, and then the real voice comes up, and people are like, "What? Does it mean they really worked on her voice? Does it mean this is not the voice of?" And she's singing off key, and you're like, "What? Is it this fraud? She should be arrested," and you're mocking her because, which you shouldn't do. But you're wondering, this is not the voice of the main song. Is this her real voice, or there was some fraud committed here? And they sold us a voice that isn't the artist. So it is even in the entertainment world, people are not doing their job. Then we have dancers don't dance, which sounds funny but paradoxical. People who anyway, he's looking at all the professions. People who call themselves dancers not dancing. It's like I think the message here, the paradox here is, if you call yourself this noun, then embody it. Period. That is exactly the message. Do not call yourself a name and not embody it. The next one, teachers don't teach. Oh, my students were so excited. Yes, it's true. Yes, it's true. Miss Gift, it's true. Oh my God, is it a competition here? I was so excited for the last one because they didn't see it coming. When they saw teachers don't teach, some teachers will just come to class and they will not even teach well. They will not even allow you ask questions. And I felt for them. Because I totally agree. Teachers not teaching. Teaching encompasses a lot. Motivation. It doesn't just come to class and writing on the board. Motivation. Cultivating a relationship with your students. Answering their question. Teaching is deep. Let's not even talk. I teach in a private school, so I can hardly see teachers not teaching. They're probably not doing it the right way. But let's look at public schools. Public schools are supposed to model education to private schools. They're supposed to tell us, this is what the government wants. This is the standard. but a lot of teachers don't show up. But trust me, they get paid. They get paid. Ask your cousins who attend public schools. A lot of the teachers don't come to work. Even when they come to work, they just copy notes on the board and leave. Or they give the class rep notes, go and write this note, and they stay in the staff room and they're gisting. Or they come to school to do business. Have you seen a teacher doing selling this, selling that? But when it comes to his or her primary assignment, they are nowhere to be found. And who suffers? The students. They graduate and people are mocking them. How can you be a secondary school graduate and you cannot fill a form? Maybe she didn't attend classes. Have you thought about the fact that maybe her teacher never showed up? You know, it's paradoxical. Then why do you... I am a teacher. I am a proud Nigerian teacher. When last did you show up to that government job? Is it when you hear rumor from a friend who works in government house, who works with the State Ministry of Education, that the commissioner wants to do a surprise visit to this particular community school, and the assembly is held that day, you show up so early? Such a paradox, such an absurdity to the core. Professors don't profess. Now, not just teachers, professors and teachers, they're basically in the line of educating. Higher institution, most of them sell handouts. You must have heard of your sister who needs money to buy a very big textbook she will never open, or your brother, and your parents are wondering, are you trying to siphon money? Not really, not necessarily, not in all cases. There's actually this tyrant somewhere sitting in an office who doesn't show up to the lecture hall, but demands you buy something. When you buy it, you pass. Then are you really educating? And then you hear all these skits mocking graduates. How can you be a graduate of this and you're not this and you're not that? And have you even thought about things like this? The paradox of of it all, of these people who are to pass this knowledge, but they are not passing it at all. Finally, students don't study. This is my favorite. When this one came up, it was my time to gloat. And I started calling certain names. I called certain students. I said, when last did you study? I studied last night. Oh, don't lie. And everyone, I didn't study. Sure, I'm guilty of this. And do you know the meaning of a student? I want to give you guys an assignment. Go and look up the meaning of a student. So you understand what the poetic person I meant by student don't study. You expect the teacher to do all the job. As a teacher, if you're hearing, sometimes you hear things like, during exam, you're introducing an exam and they're writing. You hear things like, but they did not teach us this one. If as a student, everything you know is what the teacher has told you, then you are not smart. I don't want to say dull, then you are not smart. Every single thing you know is what your teacher have told you, then you are a dull child, because it means you do not study, you do not read. Even to the tiniest question, but they didn't teach us in class. That is such a flimsy excuse. It is a paradox, because do not call yourself a student. Don't ever use the word student for yourself, because you're not embodying it, because you don't study. Anyway, guys, that's the poem, The Nation's Paradox. I'm so in love with this poem. For some reason, the poem is very repetitive. So one dominant literary device is repetition. You can see the repetition of don't in every line, connoting negativity, negation, negativity. It also connotes another dominant literary device is the use of paradox. So you can say the poem is paradoxical. The poem has the use of repetition of don't all over every single line of the poem. Then we have the poem uses paradox. You understand? Because they say leaders don't lead, and the statements are, on a first instance, sound weird, but on a closer look are making a sense and creating a balanced view. Let's look at for sound devices. I always tell my students the easiest literary device to look at for sound: the alliteration, the assonance, the sibilants, the consonants. Guys, let's look at alliteration, repetition of similar consonant sound. I think because of the repetitiveness of the poem, every line alliterates. Leaders don't lead. Leaders don't lead. It gives it a little reading. You get? Leaders don't lead. So, the repetition of the sound. Followers don't follow. L. So take note of it all over the lines. I think then those are the top 3 basic literary devices. Then you will notice that the poem is an enjambment. I always tell you, enjambment is run online. I hope you're taking note of this. In my videos, I might not annotate on the screen. I'm working on that, however, but I've mentioned 3: repetition, paradox, alliteration. Then I said I said, hope you're taking notes. Enjambment, yes, run online. I cannot see a single punctuation mark in the poem. You know, when poets do not pause in the middle, when there is no pause, when one line keep flowing into the next, it means that, you know, there is no time to wait. They really have powerful thoughts they want to pen down. And this poet is tirelessly penning down his thoughts about every facet of society. So there's this of enjambment, ENJAMBMENT. It's also called run online. That's number 4. Number 5, let's talk about the tone. Tone is attitude. I always tell my students, tone and mood. The writer or the poet or the speaker determines the tone. The speaker sets the tone. Tone is attitude. His tone dictates the mood. Mood is atmosphere. Tone, attitude. So I want you to do it like a zigzag. Tone, attitude, mood, atmosphere. Speaker's tone dictates the reader's mood. It dictates the mood of the essay, the mood of the paragraph, or whatever, the mood of the poem. What is the tone? I would say accusatory. Do you have another view? Type it in the comment section. The tone is I wouldn't say necessarily harsh, but some of you might say his tone, he sounds harsh because of the don't, and he's so straight to the point, but it's quite accusatory. Yes. So that's about 5 literary devices I have identified in this poem. Some of the themes, you can talk of theme of corruption, theme of complacency. You understand? So you understand, theme, it's a paradox. Paradox could also be a theme. You understand? Theme of instability. Instability, when all these people are not doing what they're supposed to do, there will be instability in the land, obviously. So these are some of the themes. I said corruption, instability, paradox, etc. I have mentioned 3 themes. So guys, I would want you to comment on the next poem you want me to analyze, especially those of you for this syllabus, this NECO 2024 to 2027. Then for the WAEC, like I said, 2025 to 2030 syllabus, tell me what you really like me to look into. But I want to try to drop 1 video per week as much as I can. You know, let's see how it goes. But you're going to do me a favor. I'd appreciate a like, a follow, a subscribe, right? Not follow. It's not Facebook or Insta. So you can like the video, you can subscribe, you know those things you do. I would like that. You can share it on your WhatsApp. Tell them, wow, here's a better analysis of this poem. If you didn't understand it in class and you love this one, give it a like and share it with friends. I mean, you'd be doing me a big one, and I love that. Anyway, okay, for my next video, you'd probably see my face. You know, my face is supposed to show, but it's quite dark here, and I like it that way because I'm not ready to teach. I don't look presentable enough. I think my voice serves. So until next time, bye all. Thank you.